What's up, guys? Dylan here today, and I'm coming at you with a new type of video. It's going to be part of a new series I'm going to start working on, which is a top 10 series. And I'm going to start with my first top 10 list, which is my top 10 most underrated wrestlers. I do have a few honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is Darren Drozdov. Fantastic wrestler, short career. He's also a former football player. He played for the Maryland Terrapins in college and played for the Denver Broncos for a short time, and was recruited by WWE, especially when they found out about his strange nickname, which was Puke. Stay with me here. He got this nickname because he was able to puke on command. Didn't have to be sick or anything else. He could just make himself throw up, which odd talent, but he got his nickname Puke. His real name, Darren Drozdov, if you want to look him up. Unfortunately, his career did end very early because of a botch, a mess up in the ring that occurred during a house show. It was him and D'Lo Brown, and Draw is known for wearing baggy clothing. I'm not saying it's his fault. I'm not saying it's D'Lo's. Even Draws has come out and saying this was a complete accident, but D'Lo had him up for a powerbomb. Couldn't get a grip on Draws or his clothing and accidentally just dropped him right on his head. He was paralyzed, I believe, from the neck down. But Draws has come out and said he holds no ill will towards anybody involved in the match. It's a shame that did happen, because I believe he could have been he could have held the Intercontinental title, and been at that kind of upper mid Carter, if not a main eventer or a great tag team wrestler. Next honorable mention is D'Lo Brown. If you watch the Nation of Domination in the late 90s, you know who D'Lo Brown is. He started off as just a corner guy for the rest of the nation, and eventually was brought in as a wrestler, and at that time he was around 300 pounds, maybe a little bit under, but you wouldn't know it by the way he worked in the ring. He did a good amount of high flying. He was quick. His freaking finisher was the frog splash, not a Guerrero or Rob Van Dam style frog splash. His frog splash, I mean, he'd do almost like not a full 180-degree split, but I'd say probably 75-degree split. His hands would come completely down in between his legs, and then he'd stretch out and hit the splash. And he could get some height on it at times. And I forgot to mention in this list, with these guys that I mentioned, if I can think of one of my favorite matches with them, I'll let you know what it is. Draws, I can't think of a great match because he didn't really have long matches, and they weren't always against good opponents. So you just have to look at some of his stuff. D'Lo Brown, his best matches were against X-Pac, Mark Henry, and Val Venus. Any of their matches. The next honorable mention, this is really somber because this particular wrestler is no longer with us, and also he never really got a chance to make it to WWE. Matt Cappotelli. Matt Cappotelli won Tough Enough 2, along with John Hennigan, who everybody knows now as John Morrison or Johnny Mundo. Matt Cappotelli, his career was cut short while he was working in Ohio Valley Wrestling back in 07. Or no, excuse me, not 07. Yeah, 07. 2007, sorry. I've got notes here, so if you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes, and I looked at my dates, got them mixed up. 07, he retired because of brain cancer. It went into remission shortly, but then it came back, and unfortunately, he passed away June of 2018 because of that brain cancer. So, RIP in the chat for Matt Cappotelli and the other guys I mentioned in this list that have passed away. On to the list. Number 10, Maven. He was the male winner of Tough Enough 1. Before wrestling, he was I believe elementary school teacher from Virginia. And took to wrestling like a fish to water. And it's hard to explain how good Maven was, but how underutilized he was. His first major deal, his first highlight moment in WWE was Royal Rumble 2002. He enters Undertaker just got done beating the hell out of Matt Hardy, Jeff Hardy, and Lita twice. He eliminated them, they jumped him again. He beat the hell out of him again, threw him out. Maven's behind him. He's still talking trash to the Hardys and Lita. Maven drop kicks him, eliminates him. Then Undertaker proceeds to beat the living crap out of him, going all the way to the concession stand. Maven sold it perfectly. Part of me thinks that was stiff, especially that freaking chair shot, because it was unprotected, and Maven falls to the mat outside the ring like a sack of potatoes, and he split completely, split open. He's got great color. You know, for you who are not wrestling fans, I do use wrestling lingo a little bit, so I will explain it. Getting color means you're bleeding. The only title he held was the hardcore title, which I liked his hardcore matches. If I do have to pick a match involving him, it was him and Goldust WrestleMania 18 for the hardcore championship. Not a long match, but a good match. Moving on to number 9, another one who is no longer with us, Lance Cade. He passed away in 2010. Now, he has been in WWE under 2 names, Garrison Cade and Lance Cade. And under Garrison Cade, he came in late 03, early 04, and teamed with Mark Jindrak, who was originally supposed to be in Evolution. But because Batista was out injured for a long time, and so they tried to pick somebody else to be in Evolution with Triple H, Ric Flair and Randy Orton. He didn't cut it because him and Randy Orton were goofballs when they were around each other, so they never took it seriously, so they brought Batista in. Anyway, I'm rambling. Lance Cade was brought in to team with Jindrak, who I just explained how he got to this spot to be in a tag team. These 2 guys were an awesome tag team. Unfortunately, weren't used a lot because shortly after WrestleMania 20 that year, Mark Jindrak was drafted to SmackDown. I guess Cade went back down to OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling. For those of you who don't know, Ohio Valley Wrestling was a company started by Jim Cornette. It's still active. It's just not in the same role as it was back then. It was started by Jim Cornette and Danny Davis as a developmental for WWE. So OVW was not only a promotion, it was a wrestling school. So they train the guys and then do shows, get them ready to go up in the main roster. That's how we got guys like John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, Randy Orton, John Morrison. He went through it. Beth Phoenix, Mickie James. I mean, so many wrestlers that went through OVW. CM Punk, even after his run with the Independents, he went through OVW. And then he comes back to team with Trevor Murdoch, who we'll talk about in a minute, because he's on this list too to be but they were that tag team. There was just a couple of country cowboys looking for a fight. They didn't wrestle, they fought. Brawlers. Very, very intimidating tag team, great tag team. And they worked a lot with Kane and Big Show. They worked a lot with DX in 06. Plenty of other tag teams. They were tag team champions, I believe, 2 or 3 times. And then Trevor Murdoch leaves. Lance Cade, they try to work him into a singles thing. He was trained by Shawn Michaels. So they have him working the angle where Jericho and Michaels are going back and forth. I believe this was 08, maybe 07. No, it's 08. And because Lance Cade trained Michaels, they have him turn on Michaels. Great angle. It's just, he wasn't the best on the microphone. That was his main problem. He leaves WWE, I believe, in late 08, early 09. Works independence. Unfortunately, passes away in 2010. I believe it was heart attack. So rest in peace to him as well. Next is number 8, Trevor Murdoch, Lance Cade's former partner. I don't know where he got his start exactly, but I do know that the last name comes from, I know he was trained by Harley Race, but his last name, Murdoch, comes from a guy who wrestled, I believe, in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Captain Redneck, Dick Murdoch, who Trevor looks like him, wrestles like Harley too. He brawls, and he's a tough SOB. So after his run in WWE, which I just explained, he goes to TNA, works under the name Jethro Holiday, I think, and it just doesn't work. So I think he retired not too long after that, and then came out of retirement, when National Wrestling Alliance started having a studio show here on YouTube, NWA Power. Go watch it. It's good wrestling. Every match I've seen Trevor Murdoch in there has been outstanding. Lance, Cade, and Murdoch, I would have to say a match I could think them in that was a good match. I believe they had a hardcore match with Kane and Big Show on Raw. I don't remember exactly the Raw. You'd have to look it up on that one. Next one, another guy who's no longer with us, who was in the Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression Era. Test, Andrew Martin. God, he was so underutilized, and I've heard wrestlers talk about his attitude and the fact that they think he was on steroids throughout most of his career. He was a former bodyguard for Motley Crue. That's a true story. And this guy was 6'8", 6'9", 290-some pounds, almost 300. But he was athletic. Super athletic. And he could work heel. He was a heel because he had that natural demeanor of, pardon my language, but he had a natural demeanor of an asshole. They tried to make him work face, and it just didn't work because he just had that natural prick demeanor. And the height of his career was in late 2002 and then throughout 2003, where he had Stacy Keibler as his manager, and then his girlfriend and manager, and he's screwing around, so she leaves him for Scott Steiner, which was a bad feud, not because of Steiner or Test or Stacy, but because Steiner was wrestling hurt with I believe it's called drop foot, and he wasn't allowed to heal before coming in. Which I believe if WWE would have let him have any kind of surgery he needed and let him heal from the drop foot, he could have come in and had classic matches Steiner. And a lot of people bash Steiner's WWE run when they realize it's not really Steiner's fault. You know? But anyway, Test had great matches. I mean, if you want his athleticism at his size, he can come off the rope with a beautiful, diving elbow drop. That was one of his earliest finishers. He's a former member of the Corporation. He went to WWE, ECW. Towards the latter part of his WWE career, he leaves. He goes to TNA, and then unfortunately he passed away in 2009. Another loss. I didn't find out about until years later. I thought the guy was still alive. Best Test match would have to be Test versus Eddie Guerrero, WrestleMania 17 for the European title. Fantastic match. It's Eddie Guerrero. It's going to be a great match pretty much anyways, but Test and Eddie they mesh so well together. It's like cogs. They were both naturals. By that point, Test was a natural. When you first get in, he wasn't that great at the actual wrestling part. He was great at being a big guy and beating people up. But anyway, Test is my number 7. Number 6, ECW alumnus, former ECW World Champion and ECW Television Champion. The new effing show, Jerry effing Lynn, who has worked also in WWE, WCW, and TNA. But ECW is his best work that I've seen. He was used in WCW under a mask and called Mr. JL. How freaking uncreative is... How much lack of creativity did that take? That's all I got to say on that. Whoever came up with that idea in WCW for Jerry Lynn is an idiot. Even if it's somebody I like who did the booking, like if it was Kevin Sullivan or Kevin Nash, you were still an idiot for that. Bischoff, you too. I love you, Bischoff, but if that was your idea, you were an idiot. He goes to ECW, has amazing matches with Rob Van Dam, just incredible. Steve Corino, so many different people, and his best matches were with Van Dam. He then comes to WWE, they put the light heavyweight title on him. And I don't remember ever seeing him on Raw or SmackDown, ever. And then he goes to TNA. Right from the beginning, I believe he was involved in the X Division title match, the first one. The first match for the X Division title was a 3-way ladder match. Jerry Lynn, Low Key, and AJ Styles. Terrific match. But I would have to say, if you're going to look up a Jerry Lynn match, you have to look up what him and Van Dam, their match at Living Dangerously, 1998. Beautiful match. God, I think it was like 30, maybe 35 minutes, if I remember correctly. So that's Jerry Lynn. Number 5, breaking the top 5 people. You'll be surprised. If you know this name, you will be surprised that he's in my top 10. Even more surprised he's in my top 5 because not a lot of people remember him winning a lot. Stevie Richards, Big Stevie Cool, Dr. Stevie, whatever you want to call him. Good God. You know, he didn't win a lot, but he was good. He made everybody who was in the ring look 10 times better, pretty much. Unless they were already 10 times better. Because he could sell. And he was just magic in the ring, in my opinion. I'm going to talk about another ECW guy in a little bit, that he was, part of the Blue World Order, which was a parody of the NWO. Now, and Stevie Richards, being the tallest guy in the group, parodied Kevin Nash. He called himself Big Stevie Cool, a takeoff on Big Daddy Cool. But he was great in WWE. I don't think he hardly ever won. The only time I remember him winning was when he took the hardcore title from Tommy Dreamer in the early 2000s, in like 2002. And of course, and anybody remembers his right to censor gimmick. I hate that gimmick. I hated that gimmick. But you were meant to hate that gimmick because it was them basically making fun of the PTC, which was a bunch of parents protesting freaking WWE and saying it was inappropriate for children when they don't understand. If you don't want your children to see it, change the freaking channel. I mean, there's a reason they had those shows on at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. Anyway, Stevie Richards, he made just about anybody look good. Then he goes to TNA, does that Dr. Stevie thing with Abyss and Raven. I didn't like it. Best Stevie Richards match would be, I believe this was the only main event world title match he was ever in, which was ECW, Barely Legal, their ECW's first pay-per-view. It was a three-way dance, not triple threat. Triple threat is one fall to finish, three-way dance is elimination. And in this three-way dance, whoever won it immediately faced Raven for the ECW world title. And it was Stevie Richards, the Sandman, and I believe he was 52, 53 years old at the time, Terry Funk. Beautiful match. Stevie was the first eliminated, but it was still a good match. He put on a great show there in his part. So that's Stevie Richards. He's number 5. Number 4, former Cruiserweight champion, Jamie Noble. You may be asking, you may not be remembering who Jamie Noble is. Let me give you a picture. West Virginia boy. Dark hair, goatee, jean shorts. He did the jean shorts thing before Cena. Of course, Steve Austin did it before both of them. But he did the jean shorts thing before Cena did. Because when Jamie Noble came in, he did it from the start. Cena was still wearing them different colored tights before he even did the rap gimmick. With the manager known as Nydia. They were a couple of trailer trash people. And you were meant to hate them. He was a heel almost the entire time he was there. Former Cruiserweight champion. He had great matches as a Cruiserweight in the Cruiserweight division. He was eventually brought in to Raw. He did some crappy gimmick. I can't remember it was that bad. He also did team with Kid Cash to become the new Pitbulls, which is a homage to the original Pitbulls from ECW, Anthony Durante and Gary Wolf. Rest in peace to Anthony Durante. Gary Wolf, I believe, is still alive. Favorite Jamie Noble match would have to be 2002 Survivor Series, Jamie Noble versus Billy Kidman for the WWE Cruiserweight Championship. And that was the last time Noble held a title in WWE, unfortunately. I think. He might have held the Cruiserweight title again later in his career. I'm not sure. Number 3, another ECW alumnus, another former BWO member, Nova. Super innovative. And the BWO, you may know him more as Hollywood Nova. He parodied Hulk Hogan, which I absolutely loved because that was funny. I didn't watch it when it was happening. I've had to go back and watch it, but I love it. The reason he's on this list is because of how innovative he is. Good God, some of the moves he came up with: Novocaine, Kryptonite Crunch, the Swing. You know, if you want to see these moves, they're hard to explain, so you'd have to watch his matches. Any match where he and Chris Chitty teamed up is a good match to watch. Any singles match he did, great. You know, I don't remember a lot of the matches, who they faced or where it happened, but just, you know, if you have the network, go watch. Just type in Nova and watch his match. Watch his later ECW matches in like 99, 2000, 2001. And if you see him there and you think he looks familiar, have I seen him in WWE? Yes, you have, under the name of Simon Dean. The worst gimmick I've ever seen in my life that worked for a little bit. He was a great heel because he was now you would call him a body shamer because he made fun of fat people. But back then that was okay and it worked. It made him a heel. You know, he was one of those, the character was one of those workout gurus that sold their crappy protein bars and protein drinks on the TV. Back when that was a thing. You know, a lot of you people that were born, you know, more recent years may not remember that, but trust me, I do. You know, for that feeling like waking up at 2 a.m. with the TV on and you see those crappy workout diet commercials with the crappy protein drinks, the crappy bars, the crappy workout routine. But that was Nova. Only he could have made that work. So Nova's my number 3. Number 2, you people know who this is. If you don't, you better know. He has worked in ECW and WWE over multiple decades. He's a legend in Japan. He's one of the 3 main guys you think of when you think Green Mist. It's not Muta. It's not Kabuki. It is Yoshihiro Tajiri. This guy, if you've never seen a match of his, I will tell you what match you need to go watch. And it ain't in WWE. I'm telling you that now. He was called the Japanese Buzzsaw. He was known for those very stiff kicks. That's why it was called the Japanese Buzzsaw, because it felt like a buzzsaw hitting you in the leg when he kicked you. He was also known for the Green Mist. When he first got into ECW, though, he didn't have what people remember, which is the black pants, the mist, and that stuff. He wore blue and white trunks with the Japanese flag on it. He didn't wrestle dirty. He wrestled clean, wrestled straight, but it was great matches anyway. He's a former WWE Tag Team Champion, former WWE World Tag Team Champion, former WWE Cruiserweight Champion. What else has he held? I think he held the European title at one point. You want to see a match with Tajiri at his finest, go watch any match he had against Super Crazy in ECW. Those matches were off the chain and very fast paced, so you're going to have to keep up. Now, it's time for my number 1. Some of you may be surprised at this. You may be thinking, oh, who's he going to pick? For his number 1 most underrated wrestler of all time is going to be somebody like X-Pac or somebody like that. You're going to be surprised at this. 150-pound LSD, Pike Dudley. Little Pike Dudley. Yeah. For a guy that small, to be able to do things he did and have great matches with some of the massive guys he had great matches with, that makes him my most underrated. Pike Dudley. It's hard to explain. His character in ECW it's a little weird. I mean, LSD, that explains it pretty much. That's the initials they gave him. Little Pike Dudley, LSD. But he was so tough. I would think he still is pretty freaking tough, especially for his size. Pound for pound, the toughest guy that I've ever seen. If you want to see some highlights, the one highlight that always comes to mind with me when I think of Pike Dudley is when he's wrestling Bam Bam Bigelow. Okay? Bam Bam's about 350 pounds, so he outweighs Spike by at least 200 pounds. At least. He has Spike up over his head in a gorilla press slam. He tosses him in the crowd catches Spike, and they body surf him around the arena. Then he goes back in the ring and gets the living crap kicked out of him. Or his matches with Mike Awesome in ECW. The stuff he's done in WWE. I mean, he's nuts. He's a former WWE World Tag Champion, former WWE Cruiserweight Champion, European Champion. I believe he held a freaking title in ECW. I believe he was a former tag champion. I can't remember or there. He was in TNA for a time with Bubba and Devon when they were known as Team 3D. He was known as Runt, Brother Runt. But you've got to go. You've got to watch all these guys. Even, Matt Cappotelli is going to be hard to find. So you're just going to have to watch the stuff he did with Tough Enough unless you have those old OVW stuff when he was working OVW. But it's insane with these guys. Many great matches as I've watched with them. It brings me back. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of these guys were late 90s ECW or, late 90s WWE or early 2000s WWE. That's when I was watching it the most, was late 90s and early 2000s. And it's just a shame that some of them are no longer with us and couldn't really make that big WWE return. Test, I wanted him to return to WWE so bad after he left because he put on great matches. Lance Cade, I didn't know he died until about 5 years after. Same thing with Test. Matt Cappotelli, he never even got his chance on the main roster on a national television. He would have been a main eventer. He would have been a multi-time world champion by now if he was still alive and he was still kicking. Or guys like Draws. Draws, I think if that accident wouldn't have happened, he would have been at least a 2-3-time Intercontinental champion. Or he would have found his niche in the hardcore division. Something. And it's sad some of these guys won't ever get that chance. Or guys like Maven. Last I heard, he hates being reminded of his past in professional wrestling. And last I heard, he was a bodyguard or something. And he doesn't like talking about his past, which sucks. Because I always liked him. I always thought he had charisma and whatnot. I'm still waiting for Tajiri to make one more actual WWE run that's not just a Cruiserweight Classic. I'd love to see Tajiri with guys like go up against guys like Aleister Black. I mean, imagine that. Both these guys are known for their kicks. Imagine the insane amount of martial arts you would see in a match. It would just be crazy. But I don't know. That's my top 10 most underrated wrestlers. The next video I'm going to do, I want you guys to tell me in the comments what you would rather see. My top 10 favorites of all time. Or my top 10 favorite matches. Or, here's a good one. I might go ahead and do this anyway. I don't know. I'd rather you guys pick. Third choice is a takeoff of my top 10 favorite matches, but my top 10 favorite WrestleMania moments. Not just matches, but moments. So if you guys like the videos, I want you to like, subscribe, favorite, share. If you want notifications, hit the bell. Leave a comment. Please leave comments on this one. Let me know which one of those three you'd rather me do next. Top 10 favorite WrestleMania moments, or top 10 favorite matches of all time, or my top 10 favorite wrestlers of all time. One of those three. And I will see you guys in the next one.